Hey, good evening, everybody. We are Unlock the Middle. My name is Chris Starcheski. I'm the principal at Dudley Middle School in Dudley, Massachusetts, with my co-host Dean Packard, the principal at Charlton Middle School here in Charlton, Massachusetts. What we do is explore and celebrate all that is special about middle-level education. During this evening's videocast, we hope that you will be able to share your thoughts or questions by submitting comments that'll be monitored and shared up on the screen and maybe addressed if you've got a question or two. We're happy to do that with our guest tonight. Be sure to check us out on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. And as I mentioned, Chris Starcheski, the principal of DMS. Dean Packard, how are you tonight, my friend?
Chris, Tuesday night. We're normally dabbling into a middle Marvel episode at this point in time, but we're going to take it one step further. We're going to bring something that's really meaningful back to staffs, back to buildings around the country, so we can really look at something that I think is important for professional growth for individuals. So that, to me, is a great use of a Tuesday night. There's no doubt about it. Chris, I'm doing really well. You know, Tuesday, short week, getting ready to shut down for Thanksgiving. A lot of things going on in our buildings, but nothing more important than a time for us to continue to look to get better and connect with just what I call educational warriors around the country.
Man, you know, this week in particular is a great week to be very reflective and be very humbled at where we came from the start of the year till now, in an environment that none of us were prepared for. None of us knew what to expect, and none of us know even how to measure true success. Tonight's guest, though, is all about turning on the shine. And the idea behind shine, you know, for me, is being really proud of your effort, your attitude, your affect, and the influences that you have on others, and being able to take their game to the next level. And we hope to do that tonight. And I'm sure our guest won't disappoint, but we hope to do that for each and every person who tunes in later on or live.
Well, I'm telling you, we're coming off the heels of Paul O'Neill, and his energy was contagious.
He was fire, man.
When we bring in LaVonna Roth, I've already been told, look out, because the room is just going to light up. So I am very excited about this, Chris. Let's not waste any more time. Let's dig in as far as we can go. Why don't you bring her on in? I'm going to actually read her bio, and we're going to take it, and we're going to run it, and we're going to keep this fire burning.
You go for it, man. Light the wick.
Sounds great. Listen, we're very excited tonight to bring in LaVonna Roth to our show, Unlock the Middle. As a former elementary and secondary educator, keynote speaker, author, consultant, and mom, LaVonna bridges her passions for how the brain learns with education and shows every individual how to shine through their mindset and social emotional well-being. So achievement for all soars. She has a bachelor's degree, 2 master's degrees, and is taught at the elementary and secondary levels. She's an author of 8 books, about to be 9. She has worked with educators in the United States, Canada, Europe, South America, and the Middle East. She is the creator and founder of Ignite Your Shine framework and CEO of Brain Powered LLC. To elevate educators further, LaVonna teaches educators how to get into educational consulting, part-time or full-time, through her Prime to Shine consulting course and memberships site. She will leave you inspired, remembering why you get into education and how to create substantial change in your classroom, district, or organization that is sustainable. She is here to serve you, so you can effectively serve the students through the lens of brain research, social emotional needs, and the whole child. LaVonna, welcome to Unlock the Middle. We are super excited to have you here tonight. How are you?
I am jacked up, like more than normal, because Dean and Chris, you guys bring the energy, and I don't know if you know this, but you give energy, you get energy. So thank you. I am so proud to be here.
Well, stand back, and we know you come from the Sunshine State where the weather is warm, and we are in a place where it's a little frigid right now. So let's light this fire. And Chris, why don't you start us off and take question number 1, and let's dig into a discussion about igniting your shine.
Awesome. So LaVonna, you know, the introduction gave a great background as to who you are and where you came from and what you're doing now. And the idea of shine is super powerful. And I'm a big acronym guy. I developed an acronym dictionary years ago when I first got in as a principal and had a lot of fun with it. And shine is going to be added to my acronym dictionary without a doubt. But let's take the S. Let's talk about self focusing on strengths and stopping the comparison game. What are the tips, tricks, metrics that you got to use to be able to achieve real good self-awareness?
Well, I think you all observing educators and watching what happens and what goes on, we are phenomenal at the comparison game. I think of it as mirrors. I actually do sign language because my degree was teaching the deaf. So
Wow.
yeah, so when I think about it, I think about mirrors, and we're so good at this. Like right now, even saying, okay, how does that teacher know every technology tool to be able to put into the classroom or to do it virtually? And how does that person know how to handle every single behavior management issue? And then we've got the person who has the most engaging lessons ever. And we compare. And then we take it to the personal level of, okay, they have two perfect kids and they live in the little white house with the little white picket fence, and they've got this and they're going on the 12th vacation. Okay, maybe not this year with COVID, but you get the idea. And we just compare. And we forget under S for self, it's all about our strengths, gifts, skills, and talents. It's not about comparing to everybody else and the greatness that we see, but instead saying that, yes, they are great and phenomenal at those things, but so am I. Like, I have those things that I'm also good at doing. And we call that standing in your lion of greatness. So every single person is a lion, right? But you're a lion of greatness. And so the biggest tips is to stop the comparison game and to remind yourself, it's that self-awareness that when you start feeling yourself going, well, gosh, look at them. My goodness, they're phenomenal. And they know this and that. And whatever it is, that's that self-talk that happens in the head, is learning to stop that. And sometimes people see that as fluff. From brain science perspective, it's the last thing is fluff. It literally is about learning how to reframe these situations.
Yep.
Go ahead, Chris. No, go ahead.
No, the idea, I love the stand in your lion of greatness. So I'm hearing that. And what I'm hearing is, focus on your strength. I mentioned this the other night with another guest. When I worked at a school for learning disabled students, our idea was to take the dis and put it in parentheses and find out what their individual strengths were. And we as educators really needed to find our individual strengths, because I might have been really good with behavior and math. Somebody else might have been good with social, the emotional, but we had to work as a team to really move forward. So I just wanted to comment on that, because it's an ever evolving theme to really focus on what you're good at, not what you're not good at, and build that mindset around positivity and growth.
When you're talking about self, though, and again, I look at a lot of new educators that come into the game. It's very difficult to define yourself and who you're going to become, because automatically you begin to compare. Look at this teacher, does it this way, that teacher. One of the things that I think Chris and I do a really good job of is promoting development of who you are from where you are. And that is where that self comes in. And it's okay, because people are at different places all over it's all over the gamut, which in education, that's fine. But I mean, we all have to have our people that we have to aspire to get to. So let's turn the page for a second. Let's talk a little bit about hearts. What does heart mean as it pertains to the shine?
So this is where passion comes in. So we think about heart, like, what are you passionate about? Because it's one thing to be strong at something and to say, okay, I recognize where I'm great and where I'm not great. And by the way, Gallup research, if you look at the Gallup polls and the research that is done, a strength will remain a strength, but a weakness will never become a strength. So I'll say that again, a weakness will never become a strength. It will improve, but it'll never get to the level of strength. So we look at really, what are you great at doing and that you're learning that you're great at doing? And then we bring in the passion part. And this is where I see so much of a gap. The word was not originally shine. The word was originally smart, because I was going after in education what we identify as smart, because I believe every child is gifted. The question is how. But in the United States, that's not how we identify it. We identify it as specifically actually math and science. And so someone said to me, right or wrong, someone said to me, LaVonna, you will never change the definition of smart in education. And part of my personality went, watch me. And then the other part of the personality, the self-doubt, said, what if they're right? And I'm actually grateful for that person, because when I looked at things, we do come sometimes at like strengths-based learning or strengths-based teaching, or let's look at the greatness that we have. But we also have to look at the passion side. So that H and heart to me is critical, because you could do something that you're good at doing, but the question is, are you happy with what you're doing? Are you passionate about what that is? And we know for education, I mean, I know everybody watching this, and if you're watching this, you're extremely intelligent for watching this, right? I mean, Dean and Chris are phenomenal with Unlock the Middle and putting this podcast out there. And I truly mean that, because it's needed. This positivity is needed. But you also have to take a step back and just make sure that with the lens that you're coming from with everything is something that you're living your passion in. Because if not, life is too short. You get one life. And an example that I often give when I do my keynotes is that you can have your strength, but if you're missing the passion, that's where burnout comes in, right? You're good at it, but you don't have a passion for it. Well, let's flip that, right? You have a passion for something, but you don't have a strength. That's what I would call more of a hobby. And so I kept seeing these gaps. And when we look at what we're doing, I mean, every educator, again, we know every educator came into this for the money. Okay, totally joking, right? Did not come in for the money. So for that reason, that's where that passion, that excitement, that energy comes in. And so when I think of times like during COVID, we're seeing a higher, I mean, we were already in a teacher crisis before this. We were headed right down that path and hitting it. Right now, we have teachers, I mean, we're talking thousands of teachers are leaving the field of education, and some even being laid off. Yep. Right. My husband's had to let go some teachers, and he's an elementary principal, and that breaks his heart. And so I think about this, like, are we living in the passion of the things that we do? And if we're not during this, one of the hardest times we probably have ever been through in our lives, are we finding ways to embed the passion in personally and professionally?
Now, I'm glad you say that, because I do a weekly newsletter to my staff, like Chris does as well. And one of the things I often talk about is find your passion. Even amidst all the controversy and all the uncertainty that we're in, there's still something that got you into this business. There's a reason why you're here. I can walk into a classroom and tell you right away if a teacher is enjoying themselves. Right away. The body, the presentation. Kids are the best resource to telling us as well. So again, when you talk about passion, I'd love to get into the weeds with that a little bit and just talk more about how do we say it's okay to find that? I mean, it's very difficult because teachers are creatures of habit, and they know what they know really well. And sometimes they're afraid to let their guard down to get into that and to really embrace why they got into education. So, I mean, what would you say? What would you say to teachers who are struggling to let their passion shine?
Yeah, so it's going back to remembering, like, we hear this a lot, but I think, and I almost think it can't be said enough. You know, I fly a ton. Well, I was. And so flying a ton, you know, you often hear, put your oxygen mask on first before anyone else. And it's the same thing, because if you as an educator do not take care of yourself, then who will? And if you don't take care of you, who takes care of our students, our most precious resource? And so you have to learn, I think there's two major things that can be a wonderful, wonderful blessing for teachers, but at the same time, the dark side. And that is oftentimes being a people pleaser, right? Not wanting to disappoint anyone. And we take our professional, what we do, extremely serious. But the second part is we don't always know when to say no. Because again, going back to the people pleaser, right? It's easy to say, yes, I'll do that. You need me for this? Of course I can do it. Why? Because I'm an educator. I can do anything, right? And you're used to this. The danger of that, though, is that you stretch yourself so thin. So one of my biggest pieces of advice is that you have to draw a line in the sand. You do not have to be a part of every committee. And you do not have to work until midnight and getting back up at 5 a.m. to continue on. You have to draw a line in the sand, because why? We're talking about the H, heart for passion, which is most likely you got into it to make a difference. And so because of that, there's always one more strategy to learn. There's one more parent phone call to make. There's one more lesson to create. There's one more student need to meet. There's always, 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 always. So at some point, there is no finish line. There's none. So at some point, where do you draw a line in the sand and you say, you know what, I'm taking care of me. So I'm not going to work past 6 o'clock at night, or I'm not going to work past 8 o'clock at night. It doesn't matter to me the time frame, but drawing that line in the sand, saying, you know what, I have done my darndest. I've done my best. And when I look in the mirror, I am proud of who I am. Could I do more? Of course, because there's always more, but I'm proud of who I am.
I love that.
Man, that brings me back to, John Wooden's definition of success right there. Peace of mind and knowing that you've given the very best of which you're capable of giving on that given day, on the court, in the office, in the classroom, with your kids at Scouts, dance, whatever it is. Put your head on the pillow and know that you did the job and did it really well.
But you've got to give permission to let go of the noise. And as an educational leader, last week in my message to my staff, it's okay to let go. The noise will be there. That's going to bring you down.
Yeah.
Passion, stick with that. So, Chris, I'm sorry, you were going.
No.
Get excited for a second. That topic really gets to me.
I mean, I put a message out last week, and it was almost verbatim of what LaVonna just shared. First off, I used the airplane analogy, with the oxygen mask. And then I talked a little bit with folks about how we've got to have permission to say no. Yeah. We have to say no. Tell me no. I'm fine with that. But I'm going to ask, because I want you to be involved. I want you to be engaged. But I don't want you to burn out. I want you to be realistic about what you can achieve.
But teachers become so caught up in what they do. They're the worst offenders of not being able to get to where the goals they set for themselves. And that is where I talked to the union president about that. How do I help teachers let go?
Yeah.
Just let go. Enjoy the kids. The curriculum will follow. Relationship, then learning. Boy, what a concept that is. Right. So again, go ahead. I'm sorry, Chris. I stepped on your toes.
No, you didn't.
Throwing it back at you right now.
I'm good. I'm good, brother. I'm good.
Model it. Like, we have to model it too. It's easy. Like, you all said to me right before we went live, so, LaVonna, do you sleep? Like, when do you sleep? And that's a shift I've had to make. Like, I go to bed at 11 o'clock at night. Like, that's almost a non-negotiable for me anymore. And then I set my alarm for 8 hours later. So if I have to get up earlier, then I bring it back, the time frame back. So you have to just learn to take, and I appreciate Paul for jumping in. He keeps putting those comments in. But it has to become a non-negotiable. Stop feeling guilty about it, because there will always be more. And this is where you have to make the determination, and only you can make the determination, because only you know you and your circumstances and what you can handle.
Yeah, and now bringing it back to that classroom, bringing it back to the frontline educator, thinking about inspiration and where can we find it in times like this, where we're feeling the pressures of state mandated testing during a pandemic, to kids who aren't being engaged because they're remote. And how do I find inspiration as an educator with all this noise, as Dean said? Where do we go here, LaVonna?
Well, you let me know, and I'll take notes.
The next book.
And this is where, and I have to remind myself, because, we're all human. So even when you hear any of us saying stuff, and as you're listening, that you have to remember we still have our human moments, of course, where I'm having to remind myself of, can I control that or can I not control that? Yep. And if I can't control it, then I have to learn to let it go and do the best that I can with it. But if I can control it, well, then that's where I can make a difference. But I think that's a big line and differentiator to make. But as far as inspiration, you have to figure out what is your inspiration. It's kind of different for everybody. And so, it could be a song. Like, I want We Are the Warriors by Avril Lavigne. Like, that is one of my biggest pump up songs. I listen to it to start my day at times, because it jacks me up to go forward and, okay, I can do this. I got this. And I'll tell you what, I did not understand the power of music until I taught 7th and 8th grade in Ohio, the great state of Ohio. And when I moved down to Florida, I had one day to get a job, because I was flying back and then moving down. One day, and it was the craziest interview process ever. That's a whole other time, story for another time. But I had walked out with one interview, and I ended up being offered either second grade hearing impaired, first grade hearing impaired. Now, I taught 7th and 8th grade for 5 years in Ohio, and I'm thinking, second grade. Well, I went into complete culture shock, because I was like, what do you mean you don't know how to tie your shoe? Like, sweetheart, you have snot running down your face and the tissues are right here, right? Like, my 7th and 8th graders got my jokes. They understood me and I understood them. And so I went through literally shock of this. And I remember that being in the car, and the radio stations love to play the same song about the same time. And it was Beautiful Day by U2. And it came on, and I remember kind of singing along in the car. Well, by the 3rd or 4th time I'm hearing this, on the 3rd or 4th day, one day I got out of the car and I noticed I was like singing it as I was going to the school. And I went, oh my goodness. Like, that's when I began to understand how music can actually change the state of your brain. And I thought, this is incredible. This is really my choice on how I view this. I fell in love with the boogers. I ended up going back to middle school eventually, but I did fall in love with those little boogers. But I think about music as a huge state changer. It's not only that, you think about exercise for inspiration. We can look for quotes. We can look for artwork. One of my favorite stories to share is, artwork isn't something we typically think about for this, but at the university, it's the Art Institute of Chicago. they have a picture there of a woman walking through a field. It's a very famous picture, actually, but there's a plaque beside it, and it tells the gist of the fact that the comedian Bill Murray, you know who Bill Murray is? He actually had bombed a gig, like a comedic gig that he did. It did not go well at all. I bombed it, and he was actually contemplating taking his own life when he saw the picture that is hanging at the Art Institute of Chicago. And in the picture, he realized that the woman had had it harder than he'd ever had it. And that picture pretty much saved his life. So when I think about what, who are you surrounding yourself with? Jim Rohn says you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Who are you surrounding yourself with? Like, I've had to pull back from certain people who I love and I adore with all my heart, but time-wise, I have to put a line in the sand.
Yeah, here in the way you summarize the idea of inspiration, it's really about what strikes your chord, with the greatest resonance. And it is very different for each of us. And I think that's really important for our staff in particular to be reminded of. They've got to take time, and you referenced it when we were talking about heart and passion. We got to take time for self, because with self, we become more in tune and we become more focused on the introspective side, not worried about all the results and the numbers and everything that others might judge us for. Inspiration's really going to come from that side of things. Thanks for sharing those pieces, LaVonna.
Well, let's talk about the brain science side of things and how to navigate through what I'd call uncertain times. And we are smack dab in the middle of what we would consider the biggest uncertainty that we've ever all in education worked through. So let's talk about that a little bit, what that looks like.
Yeah, so one of the things we have to realize is that the brain loves novelty. So that's why engagement in the classroom is at its highest when it's something novel, something unexpected that we do. So the brain loves novelty. However, the brain also loves stability or certainty. So it becomes this balance. And so I had this conversation with someone today. They're like, LaVonna, why am I having such a hard time with this? And I said, it's because you're normally positive and you can get through to a certain point, but this is also a very long time of being uncertain. The brain still does not understand what is happening. Am I in danger? Because the brain cares about one thing and one thing only, and that is survival. So anything that threatens it is constantly on alert. So we have been on a very high stress level at this point, which brings me to when we talk about navigate is taking your strengths, your passions, how to stay inspired to do something with it, right? So navigate is that action, it's that story, it's that journey. What do you want out of this? And so a piece of that can hinder us is stress. And when the brain releases cortisol throughout the entire body and it shoots, all the way through, we have continued to be at that state for a while. So learning to, yes, go back to what you said, Chris, about self. Like it's the letter and shine that I spend the most time with, because there's so much depth and importance to that is the core of what leads to everything else. But the thing I encourage you to think about is that when you're at a high state of stress, is that you also see everything at a high level. So like maybe, can you think of right now, like time, or even things that are happening recently where it wouldn't normally bother you, right? It doesn't annoy you or irritate you, but right when you're stressed, it gets right under your skin. And later on you're thinking, why did I let that get to me so much? I normally could care less about that.
Right.
You're at a higher state. So there's 3 levels I'll share with you that we classify when we look at problems, so to speak, or challenges. And so we look at a speed bump, and then we say that's a teeny tiny little problem, right? So it's something that may last you a few minutes, maybe something that irritates you. You definitely notice it, but then you kind of move on. And then you get to a foothill. Now, a foothill, we're escalating things at this point. So we're thinking things that may take hours to minutes, and days, and it takes a little bit longer, and it's a bigger issue, something we're likely to remember. It may fade a little bit, but likely to remember still. When we get to a mountain, right? A mountain is where we see life-changing things that last a long time, such as a pandemic. So life-changing things can be a divorce. It can be a death or loss of someone. It can be anything that really drastically impacts your life and causes trauma or tragedy. It creates the trauma. So what we look at is a mountain, and a mountain is at the highest level. But the problem is when we get stressed, we start seeing everything as a mountain. Definitely a foothill, if not a mountain. And the problem with that is that we create such a high level of stress that our lens becomes all of that. And you're going to see what you want to see at that point. So learning to take a step back and what do I want from my life? Because again, going back to what can I control and what can I not control?
Yeah. And that's deep and that's hard to process for some people. And that takes time and that takes some real serious thoughts to be able to step back and let that happen. So
It really is, and again, did you read my message to families this past week? Because I referenced cortisol and oxytocin as we're rolling into Thanksgiving week and the need for real significant balance and reflection for Thanksgiving. I thought I'm laughing. Everything you're saying. I'm like, did she read my memos?
I did. I stopped all.
No, I think what it does, though, it really does help Dean and I get validated a little bit that we're sitting down and we're talking about the right things, and we're focusing on those pieces. And but my wife's got a Wonder Woman cape behind, and I don't know if you can see it fully, but you're phenomenal at what you're doing. At focusing on this and the idea of brain-based education and brain-based awareness to be able to take our game to the next level. And that next level is exceptional, which is our E and shine, LaVonna. How do folks realize who they're meant to be? And then what are the key steps to getting there?
So it's definitely, exceptional is you're becoming the exceptional person you were meant to be, not anybody else who you were meant to be. And this is where I think we do, as a society, we do a disservice because we see, for example, the old way has been choose a career and stick to it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's not what I think life is about. I think life is actually about a journey. And in order to have the journey, you have to take risks. And during the risks, you discover what are those things that you're good at doing, not good at doing? What was the lesson, the benefit, the takeaway? And every time you dig into who you are, that is actually what life is about. So I used to explain that, you know your strengths, gifts, skills, talents. We work on mindset. We work on reframing. We get to heart and passion, and then you stay inspired. You navigate to do something with it to get to the result of exceptional. And I realized it's not a result, right? I'm explaining that incorrectly because what is actually happening is it's a process. Right? It's a process of becoming who you are. But so many times we view things in such a different way. And this is where, taking again a step back to some of the things that we talked about, but I'll make a big differentiation between two things that society really mixes up and it hinders us being the exceptional person we are. And that is, one is we have a circle that is a circle of comfort, right? And so when we stand in the circle of comfort, that's also where our confidence is. And so we take a step outside and we have some success and that comfort circle gets bigger and our confidence rises. It may shrink back a little bit if we feel some so-called failure. If you want to look at it that way, it's not how I choose to look at it. But then if you go another step and you keep continuing. So as our comfort circle expands, so does our confidence. The problem is, again, society mixes this up with arrogance over here. Right? And arrogance is somebody who thinks they're all that in a bag of chips, or they think they're better than everybody else. Right? That is completely two different circles. So the moment that we step into exceptionality, our line of greatness, the moment we step into that, unfortunately, others look at us and go, oh, you think you're all that. Like, yeah, you're all about you. No, that's not what you're saying. What you're saying is that I'm confident in who I am. And I'll never forget, one person said to me, LaVonna, what do you think is the difference between confidence and arrogance? I was like, that's a great question. But here's how I would say it is that with confidence, I believe in who I am, right? I am exceptional. I have strengths about me, but I also know that I'm not great at everything.
Right.
And that's the beauty is when everybody comes together, whether it's a school, whether it's a district, a community, family, when you all come together, that's literally when as humans, we become unstoppable because we are unstoppable because we're coming to the point of exceptionality amongst all of us, but we embrace that. And that was the year, I'll tell you, I was teaching 6th grade geography. It was the first time that I started really focusing on strengths of things. And that was the year I didn't have bullying. I didn't have kids making fun of each other because they began to understand that, wait a minute, I'm good at drawing and you're not, I can help you.
Yeah.
Wait, okay, how in the world did you solve that problem? Because hello, come to me and help me with that. And that was the turning point for me.
Man, that's awesome.
It's deep. It's a whole nother perspective. And again, I think that we wish that every school could get to that level of understanding and respect for each other to be able to make that happen. It's deep. That's all I can say.
It's a process.
Yeah, it's a process. There's no doubt about it. Hey, let's talk a little bit about some of the books that you have out there, some of the things that have led to your journey to where you are today, and how you've become so impactful with what your message is and what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, well, I want to say, Hans, great job on the humility. You're exactly right. That is another difference between confidence and arrogance. I saw that comment. Yeah, I never planned on writing ever. I hate to write. And it comes from, I actually loved to write when I was in elementary, middle school, got into college, and I started getting papers back with red ink all over it, D's and F's circled at the top. Failed freshman English. Yes, failed freshman English. And I went, wow, you really stink as a writer. I took freshman English again, and it's really interesting because I got an A. I don't know how I magically within one semester, but a different professor, different criteria. So anyway, I still, though, I will say at times I'm a terrible writer. And I know it's not true, but it's a blockage that I've had to work through. So I was already presenting on brain science and how the brain learns when someone said to me, it was a publisher, they came to me and they said, you really need to write books. And I'm like, no, I'm a terrible writer. You don't want me to write books. And I'm like, oh no, we can help you with that. You have to write books. I'm like, I don't want to write books. You're not hearing what I'm saying. I don't want to write. Well, that ended up leading to, okay, fine, we'll write. And so I ended up putting out the first book, which is Brain Powered Strategies to Engage All Learners. And it is all about, 16 different strategies, and lesson plans are embedded in there across all content areas. And that was because a lot of things I realized, I don't often share this, so it's going to come out now, but I won awards as a teacher from anywhere from the school, the county, and the state level. And I won Florida Social Studies Elementary Teacher of the Year. And so I can't believe I'm saying this. I never say this, but anyway, it's coming out now. So, but one of the things with that was, I don't even remember where I was going because I'm so flustered by the fact that I even said it, because again, it's that confidence versus arrogance thing, right? When you feel that. Oh, I know what it was. So I knew that things that I did in the classroom worked, but I didn't know why. And then when I started getting into how the brain learns, all of the bells started going off. That's why that worked. That's why that was awesome. That's why that stunk. And I finally made the connection. And that's when I thought, well, wait a minute. I have 3 degrees in education, but not one time did I take a class on how the brain learns. Something is not right here. And that's when all 8 books ended up coming.
Wow, quite a story for becoming a published author, and presenting keynotes about these topics, LaVonna. I think that self-awareness that you had, coupled with your humility, really allows and affords a real solid, genuine perspective in terms of what it is that we're hoping for all of our educators and ultimately for our kids. We want our kids to be able to move forward with confidence with each step they take. Maybe they might not know where their foot's going to land, but they have to be assured that it's going to be on solid ground eventually. And ultimately mistakes are fine. And we can get folks going there.
But one of the things I'm thinking about, Chris, is we should really dig into how the brain works and do some PD on that for teachers, because I think that will change the delivery of what they do every day. So I think as we do a visionary statement of what next year might look like, once we navigate through all this, we should probably look at what that will look like, bringing it forward for a year's worth of a theme. In some
yeah. I think that brain-based focus is really key, especially coming off of this experience of uncharted territory. I know that uncharted territory has been used a little
especially
bit.
Especially at the middle level.
The idea of getting focused on the brain, because we're going to have a whole host of new issues that we have to be prepared for.
Absolutely. The fallout of COVID alone, anxiety.
Return to normal.
Yeah.
There's not going to be normal for a while.
You have to transition the brain. The brain is a high state right now. So it's not, it's amazing that kids are learning anything right now because they are in a high state of stress, which doesn't allow the brain to learn. So, learning how to transition that and then teach at a level that the brain actually understands. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. We're right there with you. And we see it every day in our kids who are well put together and who have always traditionally had struggles. And, nobody's operating at 100%, right now.
Nope. Not even adults. So, what do you expect kids are going to? Think about it.
Yeah.
You've got to adapt and adjust. And that's been the rule now for the last 2.5 months. So, what do you do to meet kids where they are? Where are their entry points? That's okay to get there. That's what learning has to be designed as. So.
Right.
You know, and that's where we're at. We're coming up on 35 minutes with LaVonna. We're going to go ahead and start to come up with the conclusion for our show. Thank you so much on behalf of Dean and I. You remember the Unlock the Middle family now. We really appreciate the effort and shine that you brought to our videocast this evening. Hey, everybody out there in Unlock the Middle Land, LaVonna, Dean, you're on screen here in this. Thanksgiving is Thursday. Work hard to enjoy your time with family and friends. If you're allowed to be at a gathering with more than X number of people, be smart, be safe out there. Work hard to be better every day. Make the world a kind place. And let's go ahead and keep working hard to unlock that middle, folks.
Thank you.